Good afternoon. We're really excited to have you on the call with us. My name's Kathy Wunderlich. I'm with Jacobs Engineering, and I'm a project manager for this exciting project. I'm surrounded by and supported by an incredible team, some of which we will go through on this call today. Joining us is Nora Kotis. She's a water engineer and my deputy project manager who will be triaging our chat. We have Lauren Wasserstrom. She's a national practice leader for lead and copper rule compliance at Jacobs. Nancy Weber, she's our hiring and student coordinator for this project. Greg Kleinheinz, he's the chair of UW Oshkosh's Department of Engineering and Engineering Technology, and he's our lead university contact for the students. Marissa Jablonski, she's the executive director of the Freshwater Collaborative of Wisconsin. And Heidi Jeter, she's the marketing and communications lead at the Freshwater Collaborative of Wisconsin. This webinar is meant to be interactive. So as we're going through this presentation, if you have questions, please type them into the chat. If we don't answer them by the end of the presentation, we'll be sure to circle back and to answer any of the questions that you have. Oops, that is not what I wanted to do. All right, so in today's webinar, our objective is to introduce you to what the professional work opportunity entails, who will comprise our project team, why this work is important to you and to us, as well as the residents of Wisconsin, the benefits to you as a student in your future profession, as well as what the application and hiring process looks like. Again, we will have time at the end for questions and answers, but please feel free to type your questions as we proceed through the presentation. You don't need to wait until the end. Noted here in the bottom is the application deadline is September 22nd. The project schedule is October 2024 through February 2025. The work hours can be 10 to 40 hours per week, depending on your availability and the week. And then the hourly wage is $21 to $26 per hour. All right, so now to get into who our project team is. So Jacobs is an engineering firm that provides the full spectrum of professional and consulting services, including planning, technical and scientific, management, design, construction, and operation and maintenance services all over the world. We employ more than 60,000 people and have over 400 offices in more than 40 countries. We continue to rank as the #1 or #2 engineering firm in the area shown at the top right of the corner of the screen. We provide services in every aspect that you can possibly imagine. Advanced manufacturing, cities and places, which are things such as roadways, transportation, water, wastewater, building infrastructure, energy and improvement and environment, infrastructure, national security, and space. Our partners on this project are the University of Wisconsin, Greg Kleinheinz. He is the Department of Engineering and Engineering Technology Chair at UW Oshkosh. Carmen Ebert, she's the Associate Director, and the Freshwater Collaborative, Marissa Jablonski and Heidi Jeter. There are over 13 universities in the state that we are accepting applications from as a part of this project. And then also some of the technical schools have expressed interest. If you're able to be hired through the university system as a student or an LTE, then you can apply for this position. All right, Marissa, if you want to go ahead.
Thanks. Good afternoon, everyone. We're so glad that you're here. So just a quick go over the Freshwater Collaborative. The Freshwater Collaborative of Wisconsin is a partnership of all 13 UW universities, and we have 23 campuses and 13 universities. We have a mission that's threefold. So create knowledge, train students, and improve the well-being of natural ecosystems and all people. So how do we do this? The Freshwater Collaborative creates research and education experiences across all 13 universities. And it's not just engineering, not just natural science, it's also economics, social sciences, arts, humanities, and policy. And then we train students and connect them with working professionals like at Jacobs Engineering, and that strengthens these networks of these interdisciplinary projects. And we connect our students to hands-on courses, training and future certificate programs, and workplace experiences. And we're really excited to support this project because it does exactly that. It reaches all those goals. So hopefully using all of that, we improve the well-being of natural ecosystems and all people by applying the research and training that we're involved in, engaging and serving communities that eventually solve freshwater challenges. And if you'd like to connect with us, you can follow us on Instagram, Facebook, or LinkedIn and email us for information. You can also sign up for our quarterly newsletter at freshwater.wisconsin.edu. Just press contact us. Thanks so much.
Excellent, thank you. All right, so to go through the benefits to you as a student and individual, by participating in this project, you will gain practical, hands-on, real-world experience in the water industry. You'll learn and feel what it's like to participate on a professional project delivery team with engineers and scientists, technologists, different types of backgrounds, whether it's engineering, digital, water, all sorts of backgrounds. You'll be able to work with local government entities such as the cities and villages, public utilities. One of the things too is that you'll be working closely with these communities to help them identify and reduce exposure of risk to lead in drinking water. But then you'll also be able to familiarize yourself with the state and federal drinking water regulations. And again, the application deadline, the project schedule, the hours per week, and the hourly wage rates are provided here. So one of the things that I wanted to share is that this is actually the second phase of this project. The first phase was conducted beginning in January of this year and is extending through the end of this month, where we have been doing the exact same work that we are doing on this project. And we did hire a university students for that first phase of work, some of whom are staying on with us. This is some screen captures from the Freshwater Collaborative's webpage, where they have an article on there about Jacobs hiring the university students to help conduct the lead surface line inventories. And then I've captured here 2 testimonials from students that have worked on the project. And one of the things that I can't stress enough is not only the hands-on experience that you gain as a professional, but in working with others, with clients, with other colleagues, with project managers, those sorts of things. The first testimonial talks about what that particular person was hoping to gain from this project. And then the second testimonial is from a different student that has talked about what her experience has been. These are available on the Freshwater Collaborative's website. So I would encourage you to go there and read this article. It's great. But it really also kind of gives you the perspective of what this can do for you from a long-term professional standpoint. All right, so we're going to go ahead and get into the why of this project, and I will turn it over to Lauren to go through these slides.
All right, great. Thank you so much, Kathy. Thanks everyone for joining today, for your interest in participating in this program. So folks have hit on this project. It's an incredible opportunity to really help communities and water systems across the state to reduce lead in drinking water. Over these next few slides, I'm just going to provide some brief background details about lead in drinking water and some of the main drivers behind this project, just to help set the stage and give you some context. So we'll see if I can advance. All righty. So just in general, some of you might already know that lead in drinking water, it's a great concern because lead exposure can affect every major system of the human body. Kathy, I think we might be, there we go, we're back in business. You always have to have some technical hiccups along the way for it to be a really successful call. So thanks for bearing with us. So just hitting on the health effects of lead impacts every major system of the human body. In general, lead that can enter drinking water from corrosion or the wearing away of plumbing materials and fixtures that contain lead and that are in the water system. And this includes water service lines, which is going to be something we'll hit on multiple times as we move throughout this content. On the slide that's shown here, it just gives you a visual of some of the major sources of lead in drinking water. And there has been a lot of attention on this topic recently because of some of the tragic events that have happened in Flint, Michigan and other places, as well as because of new regulatory changes. So drilling into that a little bit, the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, or the EPA, it's the federal agency that's responsible for protecting public health and the environment. So the EPA is, they're the ones that set the regulations, but then these rules are implemented at the state level. And in this case, with this project, that's through the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources, or DNR, which might end up hearing that phrasing as we move through. So the EPA, they have several different regulations for water. The graphic that's shown here, it's a timeline overall, and it includes the Safe Drinking Water Act that was established in 1974, which sets the national health-based standards for drinking water. And within this, it includes lead in drinking water. And got a little bit of a delay here, but trying to get to the next slide. There we go. So this here is just, don't have to digest all this, just a timeline of the lead and copper rule. This was set forth by the EPA not that long ago in 1991 in order to minimize lead and copper levels in drinking water. And again, that's enforced at the state level. This rule, it was recently revised to better protect children and communities from the risks of lead exposure, referred to as the lead and copper rule revisions. This is the first time that major changes have been made since this rule was first established over 30 years ago. And at the same time, the EPA right now, they're also developing another federal rule called the Lead and Copper Rule Improvements. So there's going to be more changes to come and hopefully more opportunities to work together to tackle this challenge. On this slide here, just highlighting, there's several key aspects and changes to the new lead and copper rule. There is this requirement for all public water systems to prepare and maintain an inventory for their water service line materials. And that initial inventory is coming up on October 16th of 2024. These inventories are the foundation for all other aspects of the rule. It's also the focus of our discussion today in the project with DNR. And with that, I'm going to hand it back to Kathy, and she's going to get into some of the project details.
All right, so we're going to get into the what of this particular project. So what we have shown here is just some background information on what is a lead service line. A house is shown with the basement, which is pretty typical configuration for the state of Wisconsin. Unless you're dealing with a mobile home, then it's usually a mobile home over a crawl space. There's a city-lined water main, which is shown as the blue pipe on the right-hand side, that has a portion of a service line that goes to the house that is owned by the water system. So here it says the public service line and the city water main with this, and those oftentimes are in the right of way beneath a lot of the roadways where people are driving. Well, at some point there's a curb stop, which is essentially a shutoff valve from that water service that takes water from the main into the house. And then what is shown here in red is what's called the private service line that extends into the basement. And then a lot of times there's a water meter there that meters how much water is being used by the homeowner. Either the blue portion or the red portion could be lead. They're not necessarily the same material, depending on when they were installed. Maybe one portion is lead and one portion's copper, or if the whole thing was lead at one point in time, the city may have done a project that replaced their portion, so the lead is replaced and there's lead on the customer side. So what this project essentially does, and I skipped too far, is you'll see here that there's a number of dots across the whole state. Each one of these represents a community that is a part of our program. And so what we do is we essentially work with each one of these communities to help them develop an inventory that itemizes every single service line that they have, and then what the materials are on either the public side, which is the city side, or the private side, which is the owner side. The phase one portion of this, the work that's being done currently that I mentioned previously, were water systems that voluntarily received technical assistance from us and the students that supported us to complete their inventories by the federal deadline of October 16th, which is just over a month away. Well, if there are water systems in the state that don't get their inventory in by that date, they will receive a federal violation. And then those are the systems that we're going to be working with, are the water systems that didn't get their inventories completed in time and need help so that they don't end up going through a federal compliance process. So as far as the specific tasks, we will review historical records, and we'll get into this in some more detail, and then prepare a service line inventory, which is essentially an itemized list of every one of the service lines and what those materials are. The time frame is that these inventories for the water systems that have received a federal violation need to be completed by March 1st. So let's just go ahead and get into some of the specific project tasks. So this process is really a four-step process. The first step is to conduct system outreach. And then once we've worked with the water systems and established who their contacts are, that they do want to have this voluntary technical assistance, there is no charge to the water systems to receive this assistance. Then we do a series of on-site visits and data collection, and that is the second step shown with the orange circle. Once we've collected all of the data, then we proceed entering that data into a database and creating their inventory. Then we create the plans, and then the project is complete. The areas that we are looking for help from the students is to conduct the on-site visits and the data collection, and then the data entry into our database. So to get into some of the details with the on-site visits and the data collection, we do provide training and step-by-step instructions. So you don't have to have any former experience in doing any of this type of work. We've created a series of training videos that walk you through from very high level, the concepts, what service lines are, water mains, how they're constructed with the materials, all of those. And then we continually to dive down into the level of detail. For those that are able to assist us with the on-site visits, it does require traveling to the water system. So you'll see the star there. You would drive to the water system that you've been assigned, and you'll meet a Jacob staff person on site to do the review of the records. It would require having a personal vehicle. Depending on your availability, where the location is, and that you're available to do it. Some assignments may entail overnight stays. Let's say, for example, it's 2 hours away or 3 hours away, and you're meeting with the water system at 9 o'clock in the morning. You may choose to drive there the night before, or if you get done late, you may choose to stay overnight that evening and then return to your classes the next day. All travel expenses are reimbursed, so all mileage, any meals, the lodging overnight, those are all reimbursed expenses. I would say that more often than not, overnight stays are not needed, but in some circumstances, let's say, for example, during either winter break or on spring break, depending on when your spring break is, there may be a week where you participate in a series of field visits because you want to. You may then travel, let's say, 3 days, 3 consecutive days during a break, and you may stay overnight 2 of those nights, or you may travel for 2 consecutive days and stay overnight one night. When you're on site, you would be collecting data, and that happens through a series of interviews with the water system staff. You discuss with them what their available records are, and then we review those to see if they're applicable to our project and digitize them on site. And then as far as what your role would be specifically, you're assisting the Jacobs person in digitizing those, and then just understanding and hearing from the water systems, the history about their water system, some of the challenges that they're facing. And then what we try to do is that the folks that have been, on site doing some of the field visits, if we're able to couple you with doing that same water system inventory later on, that is something that we try to do if possible. All right, so digging a little bit into the on-site visits and the data collection training. So these are some screen captures that I've taken from some of our training videos where we start at a very high level, talking about what the sources of water are, a little bit about water treatment, about water storage and distribution. We talk about the types of materials that have been used in water mains through the course of time. Believe it or not, in the top right is shown as that there used to be wood water mains that predated the 1900s. They are no longer used because of there are more efficient materials that have a longer service line life available, but they do still exist in some water systems. And then just what those materials have changed over the course of time because of technologies available. And then on the bottom right is often what your typical distribution system would look like in a village or city. And then when it comes to participating in the actual on-site visits, as I mentioned, you would be paired up with a Jacob staff person that would be meeting you on site. You are assigned a water system with that location. It talks here what the goals for the site visit are. There's a pre-site visit package that's created that provides information about that water system. And then on the right-hand side, we have like best practices and what to expect. And so we do take the time with the students in advance of these site visits to help you understand what to expect when you show up on site. And after the first one, it's very straightforward and easy. Again, the only thing is that the students take the training that we provide prior to going on site so that when you do go on site, you know what to expect for those site visits. And then this is a couple of screen captures of the process and tools that we use on site when we visit with the water systems. In this particular scenario, I selected the Mount Horeb Waterworks water system. And we've created this so that we have a series of questions on an iPad, and we enter what their answers are. All of that information then is transferred to a database that is then used in the future phase of data inventory. And so some of the questions that we ask them are how many wells do they have? What is the age of their oldest well? Because that gives us an idea of how old the distribution system is. And then what types of upgrades that they've made to their water system. It helps us understand what those timeframes are of what materials are newer, how old the system is, and what types of materials their system is comprised of. All right, so the second step is the service line inventory data entry. Again, with this, we have a series of training step-by-step videos, instructions, examples of data entry, and then also a reference guide. We also provide to the students weekly office hours with an assigned team leader. So that way you are on a project team, essentially a smaller project team, and you're able to hear questions from your peers and then what those responses are. And so it's, if you think of like a connections group or something smaller like that, it's really meant to be like a mentorship type of meeting. So that way, if you have questions, then you can ask them in a smaller group on how to approach something. And those are held weekly. When you're doing the actual data entry, what you do is you review all of the records that have been captured, you categorize what that data is, whether it's drawings, ordinances, specifications, those sorts of things, and you would learn about all of those. And then you actually create a digital service line inventory for the water system that you're assigned. All of the inventories are completed on a platform that we created specifically for this. And then as far as what your responsibilities are is, just ensuring that the data is complete and it's accurate. And again, we provide all of the training so that you know how to actually physically complete these inventories. This is an example of our training tool. I actually have 2 slides here that show what this looks like. It's in, I'm blanking on what the platform is, but essentially what this is that you can zoom in and scroll around. And this is many tiles in this that, like for example, here it talks about what the expectation, roles, and responsibilities of the students, who your team is, like who you're assigned to, what's required of the inventory. It has some schematics and conceptual layouts to help provide examples. There's questions, there's recordings. So on the screen here, record examples. Each one of these is like a 5-minute video on the different types of records and how to review them and interpret the data. We have like glossary and abbreviations, and then FAQs are frequently asked questions from the office hours. So this is something that we continue to populate as students have really good questions that we haven't answered elsewhere that other students might have. And then this again is just another screen capture of that same mural. That's what it is mural. And again, these are all, specific examples and recordings. Here's another link to the video trainings. And so all of this is very user friendly. It's very intuitive. But again, on top of this, we have each student assigned on a team to have a specific team leader to help them through each step of the process. When it comes to assigning the water systems, for example, this phase 1 project that we had, there's 435 water systems were originally assigned. About 300 of them accepted the technical assistance. So of the 300 water systems that we're helping, there's about 100,000 service lines. And so this is just a screen capture of one particular team leader, Nancy, and then who was assigned from her team. It's grayed out because of the names and what the water system's name, and then what their status is through the creation of the inventory. So we have a variety of ways to be able to see what the progress is. Because as you can imagine, when you're dealing with 300 systems and 100,000 service lines, there's a very heavy data management objective here to understand where everything is at in the process. So that way we know where to focus our attention. And so these are just some of the statistics that our database is able to share with us, what the status is, the percent complete, the number of service lines, those sorts of things. And so we have a variety of tools that we've created specifically for this project that we've used in the first phase that will then be used again in the second phase. The scope of work is exactly the same, where it's collecting the records, creating the inventories. The only difference between the first phase of the work that's being done right now and the phase 2 that this project is for is the ones in the second phase will have received a violation because they didn't complete their inventory by the federal due date. So to show you a little bit what our inventory tool looks like, again, this is the Mount Horeb water system. Down on up first on the top left, this is how you're able to view all of the records associated with the system. On the top right is a map, and this is where we actually create nodes of information for every one of the buildings and the properties that have a service line. You know, through GIS, a variety of tools, you're able to do like groups or import data. On the bottom left is what records are available in a list format, and then on the bottom right is the editor tool. So this is the actual tool that the students use to create the inventories. I personally feel like it's kind of like a game where you know, that you're essentially at like adding nodes to the map for where the service lines are, and then you're inputting all of the data associated with those service lines based on the record information that's been captured. All right, so this then is just another screen capture that we use as project managers to help understand what the status is of each water system, what inventories of, and we anticipate that there's going to be 200 in this next phase 2. So of, let's say, those 200, which ones have started, which ones are not assigned, which ones have had the quality assurance and quality control steps completed, which ones have been finished and which ones have been sent out to the systems. So the objective of this is to first collect all of the data associated with the water system, create an inventory of their water system services and what those materials are, and then send that inventory to that water system for them to use going into the future, and for them to get back into compliance with the federal requirements. All right, so the application process and hiring. As far as the time commitment, this is something that we had touched on. We're looking for students to put in a minimum of 10 hours a week, and it can be evenings, weekends, days that maybe you have labs at school that you can work during business hours. It's up to you when you put in those hours. And you can only put in a maximum of 25 hours during the school year. However, when you're on breaks, such as winter break, you can put up to 40 hours in per week. Again, the data entry especially offers a lot of flexibility because you can do that work evenings, weekends. When it comes to the on-site visits, those are days that you would most likely have to be available for that full day to incorporate travel time. And if overnight stays, if your schedule allows that and you're willing and interested in that, then we would potentially send you to a little bit further away destination where you would do either stay the night before, do the field visit the next day, or do the field visit later in a day, stay that night. But in order to do the on-site visits, you would have to be available one full day per week to travel. And again, it's not a requirement, but I can say based on the first phase that students found it very useful to be able to at least do one on-site visit to just have an understanding of how a water system works, to be able to see those, you know, the different components firsthand with their own eyes. As far as the length of the program, this phase 2 is what we're calling it. Onboarding and training of the students would begin in early October, where the actual physical work will start early November to mid-November, and then continue through the end of February. So our deadline to have the inventories complete for these water systems is March 1st. Desired qualifications and skills of the students. One is that you're a University of Wisconsin student or staff. And then pursuing or have obtained a degree in freshwater science, engineering, geology, microbiology, environmental science, or similar a degree program. You do not have to be an engineer. That you have a strong interest in real world hands-on utility and water sector work. You know, much like the testimonials that we have from the students from the phase 1 work. It was very enlightening for them to not only work with the water systems, but with the public sector, but to also feel what it's like to be a part of a professional team. And just, you know, all of the processes, the digital side of it, there's so much that goes into this that it's definitely a learning experience in the professional world. An ability to focus on detail-oriented tasks. You know, there's a lot of nuances to this. It's not, you know, again, we provide all of the training, and it's not something that you would need to have prior experience in, but, you know, attention to detail is important. Good communication skills, because especially if we have questions, or, you know, if you have questions, being comfortable and being able to ask what those are and communicating those to us in a timely fashion. Proficiency in Microsoft Office applications beyond, you know, Word, Excel, Outlook. You know, we've created a platform that uses that information, or those platforms, and so there isn't any special proprietary software programs that you have to be experienced in. And then if you are going to participate in the site visits, you would have to have a personal vehicle and valid driver's license. The pay range is $21 to $26 per hour, depending on your skills and prior experience. We do have students that worked on the phase one part of this program that will be working on phase two. We hired 22 students in the first phase, and we're looking for that same number of students again in the second phase. Some have graduated, so they've moved on to professional, you know, on to new professions, and we're hiring some back as LTEs. There's a lot of work. There's almost as much work to do in the next 4 to 5 months as what we've been doing over the course of the last year. So we do need a lot of students to help us get this work done in the time frame that we have. And then again, travel expenses will be reimbursed, so there isn't any expense to you in participating in this project. And then as far as the schedule, this is just kind of a blow up of what the schedule would look like. So I mentioned that onboarding and training would happen beginning in early October. Because the phase one work was prior to the rule being finalized October 16th of 2024, there is the potential for some of the requirements of what we do going forward to change slightly. So there would be a refresher training for the students that had been working with us on the phase one work. We're expecting to get the list from the DNR of the water systems that received the federal violation after October 16th. We've slated November 1st as that date. So once we have that list, that's sort of our kickoff point for the project. Once we have that list from the DNR, that's when the Jacobs staff will start to conduct outreach to the water systems and offer the technical assistance to them. We'll start to schedule the on-site visits. Those will be conducted first, and they will happen in tangent with the inventories being completed. We'll continue to collect the information and the data, and then do the data entry in parallel with the on-site visits. And I think, Nancy, you can go ahead and take it from here.
Thank you. Are you okay with advancing? I know I only have one slide here. Okay, thanks. So yeah, we're off to a great start with the incoming applications. The application window opened earlier last month, and so we're asking that in that application package, you include, you know, your resume, your cover letter, a professional reference, and then also this year, we are asking students to include a referral. So as Kathy mentioned, we have about 11 students who are staying on the program from phase one, and we've asked those students to refer any classmates or colleagues to us, so we're keeping an eye out for that. So if that applies, please include that in your cover letter, as well as if you happen to know your general availability. As Kathy mentioned, you know, we're looking at that 10-hour to 40-hour per week time frame. And so if you happen to know which days of the week you would anticipate being able to do on-site visits, for example, that would be helpful for us to know up front. We did have, let's see, applicants from almost every campus for phase one, which was great to see. And, you know, we hired students onto the team across all the campuses that did apply. And I did want to mention that, you know, we had, again, just to emphasize Kathy's point earlier, that we really had a wide range of degree programs and the students on the team, which is fantastic, as well as returning students. So some students in graduate programs or PhD programs who maybe returned to school, you know, after a break of a handful of years. So just a really fantastic pool of students for phase one, and we're, you know, excited to see who applies for phase two. I think the only other thing I wanted to mention was, yes, the process. So again, here, Greg is receiving all the incoming applications, and UW will be conducting that initial screening, and then they'll be passing along kind of the top tier applicants over to Jacobs, and we'll conduct that next round of interviews. Pretty short, but just kind of a get to know you conversation and hear about your, you know, past work experience, future career goals, and, you know, how you envision this project fitting into that. And to meet with our timeline and stick to our deadlines, you know, we'll be providing a notification of selection pretty quickly after that to get started with training. As Kathy mentioned, the training modules are all ready and available. So, you know, once you're onboarded, we'll do a welcome presentation and then kind of get you started on those training materials. So looking forward to, again, seeing the applications that come in. I think that's all I had for this slide, Kathy. Oh, just our contact information. So yes, if you have any questions regarding the application materials, feel free to reach out to me or Greg as we're kind of fielding those inquiries. And then Kathy, if you want to take over from here.
Yeah, we'll go ahead and go into the Q&A. I can stop sharing. All right, and it looks like, yep, it doesn't
No
look like we have any
questions in the chat.
questions. Yeah, so if folks have questions, please feel free to go ahead and write them into the chat. We are happy to answer them. And then also, you know, certainly if you have, you know, friends that you think would be interested in this that we're not able to attend, again, we are looking for a substantial amount of students. So we had just fantastic students on our last phase and looking forward to bringing on new students.
Yeah, we've got a couple questions. Folks could also, I think there's a virtual hand that you can raise too, right? If we could do that as well.
All right, so one of the first questions is doing the on-site visits on weekends, or do they need to be scheduled during the week? Thanks for that question. The majority of the time they have to be done during the week because of the water system schedule. And it's a lot of times, especially if it's a city or a village, they only have office hours Monday through Friday. And a lot of times they may not even have office hours every day of the week. So we do have to work around what their schedule is. Sometimes, and I don't think that we actually conducted any site visits on the weekend in phase one. If it's a water system, that's a very small water system that is privately owned. And if the person, let's say, works a full-time job and is only available on the weekend, then in that instance, we would be able to do the site visit on the weekend, but that would be solely dependent on the availability of the water system. So I would say 99% of the time, the on-site visits would end up being during the week unless it's an extenuating circumstance. Next question, will you be conducting formal interviews? As far as I would say yes, the term formal, they are not in person, but there is a screening process with the University of Oshkosh with Greg and his team. And then after they do the initial screening, making, talking with each of the students, so you would be corresponded with, then we will do like some sort of Teams interview. And I would say it's more informal, in that, just trying to understand your interest, why you want to participate in the project, what your availability is, your prior experience, your schooling, and those sorts of things. So, it's not scary. It's not a very formal, scary process. Um, and then if I graduate in December, can I still apply? Yes, you absolutely can. We have some students that graduated in May that were able to continue working through the summer and that will be hired as an LTE, which is a limited term employee, because they are no longer students, to help us on this phase two. So whether, you can stay on into the spring semester, even if you graduated as a student or as an LLTE, you certainly can. But while you are a student, you can certainly apply, even if you graduate in December, because we will start work in October. All right, so then the next question, for students that have full weekdays during the semester, but availability during the breaks. Yes, absolutely. So the question is can data entry be done until the breaks? And then when the students are on a break, can they do on-site visits at that time? And absolutely. There's going to be the thing that we experienced with phase one is that, we're trying to balance the water systems availability and schedule, their location, the students' availability and their location. And so depending on those, there may be times that we can make a site visit work, and there may be times that we can't. But certainly, when you have breaks, and your ability to travel is there, then that is a very good time for you to be able to do on-site visits. All right. Any other questions that folks want to put into the chat? And certainly feel free to reach out to Nancy Weber, Greg Kleinheinz. Those are the two that are really spearheading the hiring process. Greg is taking all of the applications. And if you have any follow-up questions, then we can certainly answer those. And again, the deadline for your application is September 22nd. So please make sure that you get in your materials ahead of that date. And if we don't have any further questions, then I think we can go ahead and adjourn. Oh, we do have one more. Would we be able to do 40 hours during the semester, or is the limit 25? My understanding is that if you are enrolled in coursework, the limit is 25 hours during the week. Unless you're on break, then you can have up to 40 hours.
Greg, you want to chime in?
Yeah, I was just going to add that that's a good question, but that's actually a federal employment rule, so that they have a calendar for the whole year. So we can tell students what weeks they can or can't work 40 hours. But essentially, as Kathy said, if you're in school, and I think it's usually the week before, you're limited to 25 hours, but during breaks and other times, that's 40. And that's it's not a UW policy. That's a federal employment rule.
Well, great. Well, we appreciate everybody tuning in this afternoon. And again, really excited to have your assistance on this project. It is definitely rewarding. The water systems that we've worked with in phase one have just been extremely appreciative of the work that we've done, and the university has been the system has been amazing at supporting us. If it wasn't for the Freshwater Collaborative and the university system, we wouldn't nearly be as successful as what we've been. It's been a great partnership, and I think it's safe to say it's just been a really, really great experience for all the students who have participated up to this point. All right, well, thank you, everybody, and enjoy the rest of your day.